Hello and welcome back to Dystopia Now. I am Kate Willits.
I'm Emil Torres.
And today our subject is Sam Altman and Molotov cocktails. But first, we wanted to tell you a little bit about some changes that we're making. So we are pretty busy people. We don't make a lot of money off the show. Thanks to your contributions, it is sustainable. We are able to cover our editing costs. We're thinking about how to provide value for our Patreon subscribers and also keep putting out as much as we can for free so that anyone can enjoy it. So we've decided to switch to a little bit of a different model here. We're going to have slightly longer episodes, and we're going to make the second part of each episode available on Patreon, so that basically each episode stands on its own on the main feed. And then also, if people want to hear even more from the guest or even more about the topic, you can go to Patreon. And additionally, we'll still be dropping Patreon-specific subscription episodes from time to time as well. But the main reason we're doing this is just because in order to keep the show going, we have to be a little more financially viable, just in terms of, producing this and stuff. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of research. And, we want to make it as free as possible and also be able to keep the show going without having to stop. Anything to say on that?
We should say that the other perquisite is that if you become a Patreon subscriber, we are going to host once a month meetings.
Yes.
Where you like Zoom meetings, so you can join us, you can ask us whatever questions you might have, you can criticize some of my views if you'd like. So it'll be a fun opportunity.
You can't criticize my views.
Okay, yeah.
Only Emil's. These are sessions just to gang up on Emil. But so yes, the last Sunday of each month, the time may change. We'll update you, but as of now, we think we've chosen the last Sunday of the month at noon Eastern. The reason we chose that time is because we think that it potentially will work for the most time zones. Let us know if you have feedback on that. But that starting in May, we're going to have a listener hangout with us, Q&A session, IRL, the last Sunday of each month. And part of the reason we're doing this is for Patreon, but also because we think that we have a really fantastic community here. We want to get to know you. We want you to get to know each other if you feel like it. There's not that not that many people are really worried about the sick freaks that have a cult in Silicon Valley. And it's like, we might as well know each other, So...
Yes, definitely. Some emotional support can go a long way. And you said IRL. I mean, it's mediated by the interwebs.
Yes, that's true.
It's the closest we can get to IRL. And I've done this with my Substack newsletter, and it's been great. I've got to know some amazing people, and frankly, some of the individuals who signed up as a founding member for my newsletter, and consequently who have scheduled weekly chats with me, they become what I consider to be good friends. So I'm also excited about the opportunity to meet some of the listeners, and for the asymmetry of the podcasting format to be broken down a bit.
That is such a cool idea. I'm really, really excited about getting to know our listeners a bit. And also, you don't have to come if you don't want to. If you want to just have a parasocial relationship with us and not a social relationship with us, you're welcome to maintain your boundaries. That's fine with us as well. Look, I have 7 or 8 friends. So... it's up to you. But I am excited about this. We're going to start the new format with this upcoming episode, actually, with Quinn Slobodian. Oh my God, that was such a good episode. I'm really, really, really excited about this. So yes, some exciting changes. And I should say also that I am just so grateful to the people that are Patreon subscribers now. Some since the very beginning of the show, when we were still very much figuring out what we were doing, which is kind of still true now in many ways. But when we say we wouldn't be able to keep the show going without you, that's an absolutely accurate statement. It's not flattery. I would not have time to do 20 to 30 hours of work on every episode. And our producer Michelle is amazing.
Mhm.
The show has changed so much since being able to bring Michelle on board, not just Michelle's editing, but also creative feedback, guest suggestions. We are just so lucky to have Michelle. So Michelle plus Patreon subscriber appreciation moment. Okay, so what the hell is this Molotov cocktail situation with Sam Altman? I actually haven't heard of this before.
Really? Oh, so
No.
interesting. I mean, I guess that, like, maybe, that just, points to the fact that our, like, online social circles are different because this was, like, all over my social media feed. I mean, I think it got, like, pretty mainstream coverage as well. So
When did
basically,
it
like,
happen?
a couple weeks ago, I think it was on April 10th or maybe April 9th.
See, I go through like a few day periods sometimes where I'm just
Mhm.
like, I gotta log off and I have something I'm doing, I'm really busy. The time you're describing seems like it might have been around tax time. So then it's just
Yes.
weird because
Yeah.
you don't know when you just if you miss something, the news moves so fast that you don't know what's happening. Like last night,
Yes.
and we're also just like so there's so much coming at us all the time. Like I think I'm still learning the details of what happened last night at the White House Correspondents' Dinner,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, yeah.
apparently there was a shooter that came in
Yeah.
there, and then they
Yep.
resumed the dinner. And apparently the shooter was, um, he came in when an Israeli magician was on stage. So I'm like, was this guy out for Donald Trump? Was he just really not a fan of magicians? Either one kind of makes sense to me. I heard the phrase Israeli magician and I was like, oh, I'm angry now. Like, I'm going to express my anger in nonviolent ways, but,
That would be something if it
yeah.
came out that he was angry at the magician. And that is why, man, that would be quite, quite an unexpected, twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really shocking to see the rise of political violence,
Yeah.
the sort of normalization of violence. I mean, this is what happens, right? There are spirals. I mean, one thing, there are different forms of political violence. One form of that violence is state violence,
Yeah.
right? And that tends to be, quite invisible. It's invisible as a form of political violence. But anyways, the point is like, uh, you know, you get like a fascist, wannabe dictator in office, and that just kind of shifts the Overton window. It changes, the range of behavior that people uh, tend to find like morally acceptable. And so
Yeah.
all of this is just very worrisome. I'm worried about where it's headed. And it also, so this ties back into Altman, right? So you've got these companies that are trying to build artificial superintelligence. That's the new term that they've been using because AGI, artificial general intelligence, just doesn't have the same kind of magnetism that it once had. Uh, so now they're upping the game and trying to keep the hype alive and saying, well, it's this is beyond AGI, it's ASI, it's superintelligence. And they're saying that superintelligence is going to result in everybody losing their job. Many of them, AI CEOs, explicitly claim that ASI could bring about the extinction of humanity, meaning like 8.2 billion people die, right? And so, unsurprisingly, I mean, it should not be a surprise to anyone that there are now individuals out there who are taking things into their own hands and lashing out. And so that's exactly what happened on, I think it was April 10th, when this guy threw a Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's house in San Francisco. And then he went to OpenAI's headquarters, which I think is just completely across town, and tried to smash a window with a chair.
Wow.
And so there's video of this. And I think it's useful to distinguish between a causal explanation and a moral excuse, right? This is a distinction that I found very useful in my own life. Like providing a causal explanation would involve, for example, like giving an account of maybe even like a somewhat sympathetic account uh, about why this person was motivated to try to harm Sam Altman in the first place.
Are we
And that
sure
goes
though? That's the thing is that one question that I have here that I don't feel like I'm completely clear on is,
Mhm.
was this person trying to harm Sam Altman, or was this trying to harm Sam Altman's property and a building? Because like to me, those are two dramatically different things. I actually don't believe that damaging a building is anywhere in the same neighborhood as hurting a person at all. And I think that that's like a message that we keep getting, that oh, political violence, okay, someone threw a brick at a business is
Mhm.
somehow more bad than like ICE abducting people off the street. So I'm curious about, was the intention here and the likely outcome harm to Altman himself or to his mansion, you know?
This is a great question. So the question of intention will be argued in court,
Okay.
right? So this guy, whose name is Daniel Marino Gamma, I probably not pronouncing that right, but either way, he's been charged with attempted murder. His lawyer said that this is a completely ridiculous charge, and Altman posted a blog post like the same night that this event happened, and he described the Molotov cocktail bouncing off of his house. Right? In fact, because Altman is an inveterate liar. We all know this at this point. He's a manipulator. Many former colleagues of his have described him unprompted as a sociopath. Right.
Yeah.
So this is another good example of just the ease with which he lies. So he said it bounced off his house. In fact, it bounced off the gate to his house. So he wasn't actually like really in any danger. But the claim is that he was basically trying to kill Altman. He also wrote a manifesto talking about the risk of ASI to all of humanity, basically just parroting what the AI CEOs themselves have said, like I alluded to
Yeah.
earlier. And I think in this manifesto, he included the names and addresses of a bunch of AI CEOs. And he said something along the lines of, if I'm going to talk about killing these CEOs, then I should be willing to try to do it myself. So
Okay,
maybe
so
that does
he's
suggest,
expressing in some ways that his I was
I
gonna say,
believe that was the case. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I don't know the law around this, but to me, like, threatening, even though it is illegal, is a different crime than
Yeah.
attempted murder. I'm not out here advocating for credible death threats at all, but it's a different thing than actually trying to kill someone. So I'm curious to see how this court case plays out, and also if Altman receives a very different kind of treatment in court than like, I mean, I'm thinking about victims of domestic violence where,
Yeah.
their spouse or their boyfriend has said again and again, I'm going to kill you. And the police just basically laugh it off. But my sense
Right.
is that Altman will be taken quite seriously, and that
Yeah.
the Molotov cocktail thrower will be interpreted in the most dangerous possible light.
I'm sure that's the case as well. There's an interesting thought here, which I actually tweeted about in the maybe the day after the event happened, which is, I wonder if there could be some kind of self-defense case. I don't think legally that would work, and I've spoken to lawyers
No.
who say like that's like it. But here's the thing: the AI CEOs have repeatedly said that superintelligence could kill everyone on Earth, right? B, they've said that superintelligence is 0 to 5 years away. So this
Yeah.
year, or at least the early 2030s.
Yeah.
And C, they've said there's nothing they're going to do to stop this, right? And so
Yeah.
basically, what the implication is, I mean, the very straightforward implication is that we are all in imminent mortal danger, right? As
Yeah.
a result of the technology they're building. And so I understand, again, this is the causal explanation. I understand why a young person, this guy was 20 years old, might think, well, I need to do something. I'm in imminent moral danger. My family might die later this year.
Everyone in the world might die. I mean,
And
you're
all my
right. They keep
friends,
saying this.
yes. And so, but again, that is not a moral excuse. And my own view, which is on the extreme end, which is that violence is basically never justified, that there are these deontological constraints that prevent us from utilizing violence as a means to achieving some like genuinely good end.
See, I
So like
don't believe that at all, to be honest
right.
with you.
So
Yeah.
basically, if I had a gun in my house,
Yeah.
which I don't,
Yeah.
I've never had a gun. I haven't shot a gun since I was probably in like middle school when I went to like Christian military camp.
Yeah.
um, but if I had a gun and somebody broke into my house and they threatened my life and they had a gun, I wouldn't shoot them. If they
Yeah.
stood in front of me and they said, "I'll give you 30 seconds. I'm not gonna do anything. If you wanna shoot me, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm gonna kill you," I would let them kill me. So, like, that's kind of my extreme view
Principled
on
nonviolence. I totally and I think that that's a valid worldview, and I respect it. But I just don't agree that all forms of violence are wrong, and I don't agree that all forms of violence are equivalent. Like, for example, I think a classic example that people use is a slave rebellion. I
yeah,
am not going to condemn a slave rebellion.
yeah,
I'm not going to condemn, people exercising like true self-defense,
yeah,
oppressed people fighting for liberation. I mean, there's just many examples of violence that I'm not going to condemn, but at the same
yeah.
time, like, do I think that violence should be used casually? No, not at all. I don't think that that's true whatsoever, and I'm not advocating that people who listen to this show go out and do violence whatsoever.
Please
But
don't.
yeah, but
Please
I
don't.
I I do hate this political violence framing,
Yeah,
because I think that what people mean in the mainstream media, New York Times and otherwise, when they say political violence, what they mean is someone acting outside of the state's monopoly on violence.
exactly, yeah.
And as you mentioned, there's a lot of political violence. ICE is political violence. The U.S. military doing a lot of political violence around the world right now, and it's invisible if the person doing the violence has a uniform on, which I think is really dumb. I am not a little child. I'm not going to be tricked by a costume. Like, to
Mhm,
me, if you kill
mhm.
someone, you kill someone, whether or not you are sanctioned by the U.S. military to do so, or you are a police officer. I mean, I don't. I think the states, especially imperialist countries, are doing a lot more violence than individuals are, but for some reason, this is kind of never accounted for in the calculations of
Yeah,
violence. And, now we're starting to see, some kind of examples of people, acting outside of the state's monopoly on violence, like Luigi being the famous example. And I don't think that this would be like a functional way to have a society on an ongoing basis. Ideally, I think in a healthy society, the state would have a monopoly on violence, but it would be a very different kind of state.
yeah,
And I am not, I don't know. I'm just not interested in this question of completely separating violence that is done by a country, by a police force, by an army from like what an individual is doing. And I'm also not interested in classifying damage to buildings
yeah,
as violence because it's
yeah,
not the same thing at all, in my
yeah.
opinion. Yeah.
I actually just had, a pretty heated, debate on, Twitter, which I guess having said that sentence, I realized, like, I didn't need to add the word heated. Like, it's on Twitter, so of course it's
Yeah.
gonna be heated,
Yeah.
about this exact issue, and the guy, who's has become a somewhat noted EA, blocked me for pointing out that there are some cases. I mean, these are this sort of, rare, sort of anomalous cases where I think violence might be justified. He blocked me after I mentioned like the Jewish partisans, for example, in 1930s Germany. Who were it was like this little militia group that was fighting back against the Nazis. The suffragettes, set fire to buildings. So that's a form like a controversial form of quote unquote violence. I also agree that like property damage probably shouldn't be considered violence. So anyways, I mean, there are these cases where I mean, the other thing to mention here is, in a healthy society, there should be mechanisms and means by which to bring about change. for the better of the citizens, when those democratic means completely fail, people end up feeling backed into a corner. There's nothing they can do, and suddenly, uh, the use of violence or force, etc., that starts to look like their only uh, viable option,
Yeah.
right? And so, really, what you want is a society where people can effectuate the change that they so desperately want through a peaceful democratic means. And as long as that's there, people are not going to resort to violence, with the exception of like the rare, psychopath.
Yeah.
But we're in a situation now where like we have an authoritarian leader. I mean, going back to the superintelligence race, the ASI race, you have a bunch of like extremely powerful people, right, who are like almost all billionaires, who are saying, we're developing this technology. There is nothing you can do to stop it. It's going to wipe out your job. And ultimately, it threatens the very existence of our species. And some of them add the if superintelligence replaces us, so what? That's just
Yeah.
the natural next step of cosmic evolution. This is the way it's supposed to be. And people have no option to vote on like whether or not this technology should be developed. So it's just not surprising from a causal explanation perspective that there are some people lashing out. I mean, another thing to mention here, actually, I'll mention two things. So one is that here's some quotes from Sam Altman that I am sure the attacker was aware of, because these are fairly well known in like anti-AI circles. So Sam Altman has said, quote, AI will most likely sort of lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies created with serious machine learning. And he also has said on separate occasion, probably AI will kill us all, but until then, we're going to turn out a lot of great students. On yet another occasion, he said that the bad case, and I think this is important to say, is a lights out for all of us. And he predicted that over time, a lot of the world gets covered in data centers as a result of AI. So these, when you pair that with the with additional claims that superintelligence is going to be here in 2028, which is what Altman predicts. At least it could be here as early as 2028, and also the claim that they're just not going to stop doing what they're doing, because they're all a bunch of like weird techno-utopian transhumanists who really want to create ASI to bring about some kind of weird digital paradise. Um, like it just makes sense that some people are going to lash out, and I doubt this is the last example we'll see. In fact, I mean, the day after the guy threw the Molotov cocktail at the gate of Sam Altman's house, there were two people who drove up and fired a bullet at his
Yeah.
house. And the
Yeah.
weird thing is they're being charged with negligent discharge of a firearm. So, they weren't arrested on charges of attempted murder. So I'm a little confused about the details there. But, people are pissed about AI. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is, even on the good case, Altman says our species is going to go extinct. Right? You
Yeah.
have to infer a little bit, but it's a once you read carefully the things that he has written and you listen carefully to the things that he said, this is a straightforward implication of his view. So I'll give you a few quotes, for example. So in 2017, he published this article titled "The Merge." And he wrote, quote, "We will be the first species ever to design our own descendants. My guess is that we can either be the biological bootloader for digital intelligence and then fade into an evolutionary branch, or we can figure out what a successful merge looks like." So he's saying either we die out or we merge with AI, right? And he goes on to, he says that this is probably our best case scenario, quote unquote, for making it past the singularity. He also says that the merge can take many forms. We could plug electrodes into our brains, or we could all just become really close friends with a chatbot.
I mean, it's so crazy. It's so crazy that these people are so they feel literally entitled to kill everyone on Earth, which is insane. I mean, it's and
Insane.
I mean, in that there's a lot of forms of resisting this. Obviously, throwing a Molotov cocktail is incredibly extreme, but we see much more normie ways of resisting AI as well. Blocking data centers being a big example. Blocking data centers at the state or local level, particularly through legislation or just kind of classic NIMBYism, filing
Mhm.
environmental ordinance lawsuits, whatever, using the sort of details of the zoning code
Yeah.
or otherwise to and like these weenies, these like tech CEOs, like they're just as much of a baby
Yeah.
about that completely legal, mundane, dare I say, boomer driven kind of
Mhm.
activism as the Molotov cocktail. And I mean, like I would encourage the legal way, if possible. But I mean, I don't believe that AI beings are going to, murder us all in terms of like the kind of way that Yudkowsky talks about it. But I do think that AI it is going to cost a lot of jobs. Not
Yeah.
not necessarily even because it can replace humans, but because employers are going to use it as an excuse to lay off a ton of the workforce. Already, we see important healthcare decisions being made by AI, claim denials done by AI, and of course, there's always a person behind this, a group of shareholders using this as an excuse. But I think that this is where the concept of social murder
Yeah.
becomes a really useful concept from angles. I think that many people in the country became familiar with the concept of social murder when learning about Brian Thompson, the former
Yeah.
CEO of United, who was murdered. And like
Yeah.
this guy caused the death of so many people from United refusing to pay on people's, cancer claims or, denying life-saving treatment to,
Mhm.
save a buck here and there. They also got caught doing it with AI, and it's like that guy is ultimately responsible for a lot more deaths than Luigi, no matter what you think about whether or not Luigi shot him. But I mean, like these AI CEOs are talking about enacting social murder on a scale that we have perhaps never seen, even if it's just people can't afford to like feed their families and get medical
Mhm.
care anymore. So it's like whether or not they ever, build the demon god that kills everyone.
Mhm.
I mean, we can talk about very real consequences that we're already starting to see right now that will result in many people losing their lives.
It's insane that the AI CEOs can threaten to possibly kill everyone on Earth,
Yeah.
but if you threaten the AI CEOs, you will get arrested, and you should get arrested. I think people should not be threatening others. That's my personal view, but it's just that asymmetry is absolutely outrageous. And the other thing I wanted to add, I mean, going back to what I was saying before, so in this essay, The Merge, Altman says that one form of the merge could be that we just become like really emotionally and psychologically close with AI chatbots. But if you read the rest of the essay and look at other quotes from him, that's not really what he has in mind. I mean, he's a businessman, and I think he included that simply to make the idea of the merge more palatable to the average person. So, I mean, he goes on to, like in an interview, he said, "quote The full-on crazy version of the merge is that we get our brains uploaded into the cloud." He adds, "I'd love that." Right. So, I think this is what he actually means by the merge. I mean, he also says on another occasion, I think this was in the most recent New Yorker piece on Altman, which I'd highly recommend, by Ronan Farrow and someone else whose name I'm forgetting. But he told Farrow and the other co-author that his quote definition of winning is that people crazy up level and the insane sci-fi future comes true for all of us. So really what he has in mind is that the only way we can avoid going extinct is by uploading our minds to computers, right? He himself has signed up with Nectome to have his brain digitized, which he says will happen, could become feasible within, the coming years or decades. So he is preparing to become one of these AIs, right, to survive the singularity by merging with superintelligence. What he's essentially saying is that the only way for us to avoid extinction is to go extinct, right? Because if we become this like digitized, collection of beings that are all, living in this digital soup, then our biological species will no longer exist, right? So the reason I mention this in the first place is that it could be utilized by people who are against AI to further justify, quote unquote, justify extreme actions, right? Because they're saying, look, Altman has repeatedly said AI might just slaughter everyone on Earth.
Mhm.
But Altman also says that in the very best case scenario, we'll still go extinct, right? Because we'll have to upload our minds to computers. So, like, he's also said that on another occasion, the merge has already begun. And the merge is our best scenario. Quote, any version without a merge will have conflict. We enslave the AI or it enslaves us, right? And so think about his vision for the future. Imagine we get superintelligence in like 2 years, right? 2028. And that enables some people to upload their minds to computers, merge with the superintelligence, and therefore, quote unquote, survive.
Yeah.
Most people around the world are not going to want to digitize themselves. They aren't going to want to become disembodied digital beings living in some digital ether, right?
Yeah.
They don't want that for their kids. They don't want that for their parents, and they don't want to do that themselves. So consequently, you're going to have a bunch of people who, basically the tech elites who are going to merge with superintelligence. I'm assuming all this technology is possible. Let's just bracket that because I don't think it is. But
Yeah.
let's just
Let's just engage with the sci-fi fantasy
yes,
for a
let's
second.
play the game. So
Yeah.
they all merge with machines, leaving behind most of humanity. Well, what happens to most of humanity? Like me. Well, according to Altman, I will get enslaved. I'll get enslaved by the AI, right? The AI that is the superintelligence and all of those digitized humans who have joined it, right? And then what happens once after I'm enslaved? Well, ultimately, I die out, and so does all of my conspecifics, meaning that the human species disappears. Like that is his best case scenario, and that is fucking nuts. And
It's fucking nuts. Yeah, no, it's completely. I mean, it's so bankrupt. I mean, we just. I'm thinking about what you were talking about earlier about how people resort to violence when there are no democratic means of expressing themselves, and actually having it make a difference in the material reality of their lives. Obviously, there is that famous quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Rioting is the language of the unheard. Sorry to
Mhm,
be a white lady quoting Martin Luther King to
mhm.
bolster my argument. We've seen some really bad examples of that. But there is, however little democracy we have in the United States because of Citizens United and all of this corporate money, all of lobby money, military industrial complex, all these crazy things, like we still do at least get to vote. Nobody gets to vote on Sam Altman's future vision of like everyone becoming a slave who doesn't want to become a robot. Like there's absolutely no one gets to participate in that decision making process at all. And
This is why I've described it as tyranny. It
yeah.
is a form of tyranny, right? So
Yeah.
people like Altman, as well as the other AI CEOs like Dario Amodei, in particular, like to talk about the importance of AI being democratized, right? And
Yeah.
like this technology should be available to everyone, et cetera. Um, Dario Amodei, for example, he says it's really important that democratic states in the world utilize AI to gain a geopolitical head start or advantage over other countries that are authoritarian. So they talk a lot. They like to talk about democracy and the importance of democracy, and yet their whole approach to developing this technology, questions like how is it developed, when is it developed, et cetera, is profoundly anti-democratic. They do not give a shit about what you and I think, relating to the questions I just mentioned. They're developing the technology independent of what anyone else thinks, and they're doing it without our consent or permission. It's a form of tyranny, and it's not just like a tyranny over the present. I mean, ultimately, it would be a tyranny over the entire future of humanity, especially if like ASI destroys, kills all humans, or if the only way that we survive, our like quote unquote like humanity survives, is by merging with the machines. Right? This is just absolute tyranny on a scale that is completely unprecedented in human history.
It's also sociopathic. Like, let's take a category of person that we all think is just utterly bankrupt and demonic, the school shooter.
Mhm.
Okay? None of us think there's anything good about school shooting. This is not a morally justifiable crime in any sense. I guess I was going to say there are no apologists for it, but I guess on the far right or whatever. But most normal people think this is one of the sickest things that an individual could possibly do. Even in the school shooter's manifesto, they could never conceive of something as sociopathic as eliminating all of humanity. Like, it's
Yeah.
so sociopathic. It's such a dark and bankrupt soul that comes up
Yeah.
with an idea like that. It's giving me chills. It's so creepy, you know?
Can I modify that just a little bit?
Yeah,
There
sure.
have been a few school shooters who have talked about, like, in their private journals, killing all humans.
Okay,
I
well,
know this because
they're
I've written about
bad.
them,
They're really, really bad too. Yeah.
but your point completely stands, right? I mean, there are a bunch of, like, accelerationists out there who, are literally okay with the thought of not even us merging with machines, but just those machines just killing everyone. Right?
Yeah.
Some of them are explicit about that. If they literally say things like, "Well, it would be nice if the superintelligence would let us live, but if it decides it wants to just harvest all our atoms for, to build data centers and solar panels, etc., then I'm completely fine with that." And that is absolutely on the level of omnicidal insanity of the sort expressed by some of these, like, school shooters, like Eric Harris, for example, one of the perpetrators of the 1999 Columbine massacre, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like these are the kinds, but the way they talk about human extinction being brought about by ASI somehow makes it a lot more socially acceptable than when you hear the school shooters saying, well, like, rather than ASI killing everyone and me building the ASI that does that, I just like to get my gun and kill everyone. Right? That
Yeah.
suddenly sounds so much worse. Why? Why? There's no reason that one should sound in any way more acceptable than the other, which is just to say that, like, the AI CEOs, their rhetoric is is absolutely outlandish. And
Yeah.
even though I don't believe ASI is right around the corner, I think we're probably quite far from building ASI, whatever that word means exactly. It still fills me with indignation to hear them get away with saying that they might kill me and my family.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's so bizarre, and yeah, they've kind of elevated the normal, quote unquote, normal social murder within capitalism to advocating for social omnicide, as
Yeah,
you're saying, and it's unfortunately just as invisible, I think, to many people.
yeah.
Or I think maybe a lot of people are assuming that these guys don't seriously mean it, that
Mhm.
this is just some sort of sci-fi fantasy. But as I think some reporters at this point, including Taylor Lorenz, who we just had on the show a couple weeks ago, are starting to cover. They absolutely mean it. They absolutely mean it, and it is totally deranged and sociopathic.
Deranged. So
Yeah.
deranged.
Anyway, this was not a very uplifting episode, but we want to thank you again for listening to the show. We really appreciate it. Especially thank you again to our Patreon subscribers. We appreciate you so much, and we'll be back in the next few days with a new episode. Thank you so much.
See ya.